hits, them other podcasts trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Yo, everyone, and welcome to the Texans Fan Bio Podcast. I am joined with my amazing trio, myself, Matthew Briggs, and with me I got my A1 since day one, Mr. Crenshaw. Say what's up to the folks.
What's up, everybody? How you doing out there?
And then if you're on Texans Twitter and you're in those spaces, you know this guy very well. We got the space legend VT. Say what's up to the folks.
What's going on, guys?
And guys, we are very pleased to have a special guest with us today. Y'all know her from the Houston Chronicle. We got Miss Stephanie Stradley. How you doing, ma'am?
I'm great. You don't have to man me, though.
Hey, you know, I'm from the South. Is just, you know, if I don't, I just feel like my mom's gonna come out of nowhere and just, you know, thump me in the forehead. So it's out of habit. But thank you for coming on here, Stephanie. How's your night going?
It's great. It's great. Great to talk to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's kick it off. We kind of talked a little bit last week with Aaron Wilson about Jack Easterby parting ways with the Texans. Let's get your side of you. What did you thought of the release and everything surrounding the whole controversy of Jack Easterby?
Well, you know, I actually wrote something about it in response to questions to write about it for Battle Red blog. So I actually wrote everything out. I have it as a pinned tweet right now. To me, it really depends on who you are in the story about what your perspective is, because everybody had kind of a different perspective of it. I mean, I don't want to truck in gossip, because I don't think that's fair to anybody, you know, like, right. You know, especially when you're not really in a good position to respond. And one of the things I talked about in the piece I wrote, which is it's the hardest part about all of this for everybody, is just the nature of football, that football has secrets. You're supposed to have secrets. You're supposed to, you know, keep your issues in-house if you can. You know, that's just the nature of things. But at the same time, if things aren't aligned, there are no secrets. And sometimes it's not even just leaks. It's just, you know, people talking about what their experience is with something and having feelings about how that is. I mean, I just think structurally, it is really hard to be in the position where you're considered close friend of the owner and not have a traditional football background, and to do it really quickly. Like, not specific to Jack, I just don't think that being in that role with his background was going to be something that would be easy to just do, you know, like, no matter what your background is. And, you know, he had, you know, there were a lot of questions about how a lot of things happened over time. And I don't want to rehash that, because the past is a past, but there were a lot of things that from the outside, people who were asked to spend their time and their money and their energy to follow the team just didn't understand. And even the information that was given to the media, you know, close up, it wasn't something that would be easily like, you couldn't articulate that, you know, like the reasons why anything was happening, because a lot of it frankly didn't make a lot of sense. You know, the way things were structured, like, it went from, you know, him being the interim GM after firing a coach 4 games into a season, which is really hard and unorthodox to do. I mean, it happens sometimes, but like, the rationale was, well, we're going to get a head start in getting a new head coach, and the Texans were about the last team to do that. Then there were promises made about, at first the rumor was that he was going to be a key part of picking the next person, and then that was kind of backed off on. It's like, okay, we have this process, and in the process, they had something written out, and it said, hey, we have these people we're consulting with, and we have a list of people that we're working through. But at the end of the day, it's the McNair's decision, and that was a part of it. But people were thinking, okay, this is the process that they're going to go through. And then when Nick Caserio was chosen, that and that it was clear that Jack was staying after the Sports Illustrated articles that weren't really explained very well, people obviously had questions. Like, the response by the team was, trust us. But it wasn't just this situation. For a long time, things just didn't feel right with the Texans, with what they said that they were about, but sometimes what they did. And even when they were winning there were some feelings where, like, the way that they're doing things don't make a lot of sense. And so over time, there were just a lot of things that were just not sitting with people well in a lot of different ways. And Jack was one element of it, but it wasn't the whole thing. And it's going to just take some time to kind of navigate, okay, how do we put a professional organization together and pretty much rebuild all the things that, frankly, Jack was at the center of kind of disraveling. Like, they went way too long without a real GM. And there were reasons why that happened, but whatever the reasons are, doesn't matter. You didn't handle that very well. And it resulted in pretty much wasting everybody's time. And so how do you get to the other side of that? And part of that is, if you're going to be holding players to high standard, you have to do the same thing with the people running your team. And I think there just were some things that may not have been handled very well, that hit people the wrong way, and just not just outside the building, inside the building. It's just really hard to be a non-football person in such an expansive role. Like, I mean, for a while there, at first it was, okay, well, he's no longer handling personnel, but he was executive vice president of football operations and in charge of culture for the whole organization, which means he's in charge of everything but the draft, but probably is consulting with that too. I mean, there were no boundaries, and sometimes he did some actions that hit football people in the wrong way. As like, if everybody has different elements of football that they're good at. Like, I understand football probably better than some people just because I've seen it up close, but I wouldn't say I'm the football person, I should do this. But when people from non-traditional football backgrounds try to tell football people how things really are, that can hit people the wrong way. And I'm not saying that, people universally saw him in a particular way, but it was divisive, and just the public things that you saw weren't helpful. Like, publicly, he tweeted a lot of different things. It was kind of, for some people, they might have found his advice welcome. And for other people, some of his tweets sounded like subtweets, or maybe not appropriate for an executive to say, just hit people different ways. Well, one approach to dealing with that would be, your job's not tweeting, leave communication to the professionals. But, he kept on doing it. Or another example of that would be, the way that you communicate in, with executives is to go through the PR function of the team, for example. So, and he had that situation during the combine where he gave an interview to two kids from Philadelphia after not talking to the local media about anything. And And it turned out that he didn't go through PR to have that set up. He just decided that that was going to be something that he did, which I guess he could do that. But it took away from the team message. And the team message at that point was, we're at the combine, we're a normal team, we do things in normal ways. And then he did his own thing, which wasn't mean, but contextually, given the circumstance, probably wasn't very helpful. So, I mean, are those big bad things? No, but those are public things that other people could see that just were things that just didn't seem very normal. Like right now, I mean, don't you think that people just crave rooting for a normal football team?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hit the nail on the coffin. We got a couple comments. Chris Royal says, preach, Steph. He steps his non-football into a locker room full of professionals. That's a bad mix. And from our Jaguar fan, we got Duval. Jack Easterby for president. And also, that's facts about the player standards versus front office.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, if part of it's one of the things that I talked about in the piece. Like there are basic things that are just everybody agrees about football, do your job. Let people do their job. Don't make it more difficult for other people to do their jobs, right? Don't be a distraction. Like he's been a distraction, and it's not saying that he is, this, that, or the other thing, but I mean, it was pretty clear that he was a distraction. And one of the things that's been kind of hard is, that Sports Illustrated article was really unusual. I mean, the Texans, are there leaks? Yeah, every team has some kind of leaks. But that was extraordinarily unusual for a number of people to even anonymously say, hey, put this in publication. This is what's happening.
And a lot of people believe what they read, too.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that wasn't just some random people saying stuff. That was a reported story by experienced reporters. And the process of doing that means that, they vet it through their lawyers, the whole 9 yards. And the team response to that wasn't the greatest. Part of that probably was that their communications group was in transition, but part of it was they were really hurt by what was said. They almost took the wrong things from the article. They just said, oh, well, we'll deal with this. But I mean, it's hard to deal with it when the thing saying is, we don't trust this person.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was talking bad on people that those people liked. Like you can't talk bad about, you win as a team, you lose as a team, you don't point fingers, and you have your teammates back. And there was the sense that he didn't always do that. Now, I'm not going to rehash all of the different things in there, but the article was about a lot of people concerned that this person was acting like a football person, but wasn't really a football person. And I mean, I think that is the biggest thing, if he would be, I would contend that he would say, yes, he is a football person. And a lot of people who like him would say, he does know some elements of football, but he's not a football person who should be telling football people what to do. And really, one of the things he kept preaching was, well, people can learn and grow into roles. Well, at some point, this is the highest level of football. People are spending their time and their money watching this. And no, this is not a learn on the job kind of role. Like you have to be the best at what you do. And, it was just, he just wasn't in a great position to be widely trusted. And he needed to be in that position in the role that he had.
Right. And like I said, it was time to move on.
Yeah. I mean, and it probably would have been I know this is going to sound strange to some listening. I was hurt that there was anybody in the Texans community that was loathed as much as he was. Okay, so what do you do with that? You either go, I'm proud of that, which you can't really do in a team sport. You can't be proud that people don't like the job that you're doing. You have to figure out a way of dealing with it. And I think some of the ways that he tried to build trust with people ended up being kind of counterproductive, that he was trying to PR his way through getting people on his side. And part of that was, the articles that talked about how nice he was and how helpful he was to people. And he really did champion people. And if he championed you, then you were golden. But if he didn't like what you were doing, then that was also a problem.
Right.
And it just it would have been better off for everyone had he left earlier, but I think he felt the obligation to stay and help longer. And frankly, he had a very big contract and long-lasting contract that I think others might have found alarming.
Can I ask you some specific questions that affect the product and the field? Because I think you've explained, the overall issue that you have with Jack Easterby, and
it's not a question. It's not my issue with Jack Easterby. I'm just trying to say, okay, what is the fairest way of talking about this to people who had different experiences with him?
But just to focus on the product and the field, because at the end of the day, winning Texas fans like me and others that have commented, think about. What I want to know, and you may not be able to divulge all the information that you actually know, and I'll respect that, but I do have to ask the questions and see if you can answer them. I got two questions, and one of them is before Casero came on board, and one of them is after Casero came on board.
Sure.
So one of my favorite players was Hopkins, and we all heard the story about Bill O'Brien and how it was more Bill O'Brien than Jack Easterby that kind of pushed Hopkins out. Well, go on. I mean, if you have something to say about that, let's hear that before I move on.
That's kind of a hard story to tell where it's fair to everybody telling it. I mean, it was pretty clear that O'Brien and Jack Easterby had issues with whatever the thing is. And that whatever the thing is, don't really want to talk about it because part of whatever the thing is not fair to talk about with anybody.
Right.
Okay.
But whatever that thing, whatever the thing is, let's just put it that way. You can make just the football argument that it's not good to have somebody who wants to be paid a lot, is a wide receiver that wants to get paid a lot, and you can get value for a wide receiver. I mean, there's plenty of wide receivers that have been traded for great value. And you could have made that argument. Unfortunately, the way that they did things is they took on David Johnson's contract, which before that trade, this is not in retrospect, before that trade, the analysis was that David Johnson had an untradeable contract, that nobody would want to take on that contract. And this is not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just had an injury history. He wasn't performing very well. Running back contracts are probably the least valuable contracts that you can take on. Not to say that running backs aren't valuable, but you don't want to be paying a premium for them. So when they did that, it was shocking, just the timing of it, what he had meant to this specific team, because it's not like they had a whole crew of wide receivers on the side. His relationship with the quarterback that he had, I mean, it just took a lot of people by surprise, and it could have been justified better had they had good value for him. But not only did they not get good value from a draft perspective, but they took on a terrible contract too.
Yeah.
And then their explanation of that afterwards was so insulting to everyone. And it almost sounded like Bill O'Brien had been taken over by some spirit. I mean, he goes, well, why are we doing it? Because of capital T, capital E, capital A, capital M. And you can have that point of view that you really want particular people for your team, but to say that publicly and to justify in the most juvenile way, didn't treat anybody like adults. It didn't treat the players like adults who all had their own relationships with Hopkins. And it didn't treat outsiders like adults. Like, we're all adults. We're not irrational people. If you have a rational thing that you're doing, explain it. And then, Hopkins afterwards was like, yeah, I wanted more money, but I wasn't trying to break the bank, and this was surprising to me. But I don't want to hash behind the scenes stuff, because frankly, some of the talk that way is straight up defamatory. Like, if you're not asking people for comment on what that specific thing is, and you just put it out there without confirmation, yeah, that can be defamatory. And I don't want that business. And also, it's just not fair. It's just not fair. So yeah, but that whole, just from the public point of view, you traded away a player with value, and you took on a contract that was supposed to be untradeable. Like, the Cardinal fans I knew were like, what, we got rid of that contract?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
They're all happy to get rid of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, a couple more comments before we move on to the next question. He got rid of Hopkins. He wrote up all those bad contracts.
Seriously, I'm
right.
I'm getting some PTSD on this.
And also, the thing that Bill O'Brien liked Skittles more than Hopkins play seemed like a fair trade. Skittles over Hopkins. That is again from our lovely Jags commentator. She always likes to throw little jabs at us.
Well, people like who they like.
Right. B, you have one more question for her?
Yeah. I appreciate that response, but this one is based on Caserio being in the house at this point. So I think a lot of people understand that the regime previously was not a great regime. We got rid of some of our favorite players. We went from having great seasons to winning 4 games with the top 3 quarterback, arguably. So a lot of people understand we need a lot of changes, and we did, right? Caserio really changed house, and now my poster's falling. So great.
That's not symbolic.
Right? It's symbolic of what we're talking about. But now a lot of people, including myself, have put a lot of faith in Nick Caserio. In his management decisions, in his draft prospects, in the way that he's going to build a roster, how he's building the team, how he's choosing who's going to be, the core of the team and so forth, obviously working with Lumpy and Pat. One of the biggest concerns, however, was when most of 610 and many places besides 610 were saying that Josh McCown was going to be the guy. And for me, thinking of someone who's only coached, not even a head coach, but coached a position coach in high school, was going to jump up and be the head coach of a team in the NFL was so mind-blowing that I couldn't even understand why he had 3 interviews. What I don't get is I have all this faith in Caserio. Do you have any inkling if Caserio was actually okay with this? Because from other reporters have said that it was going to happen unless Cal put the kibosh on it. And that's what I've heard so far. And I don't know what's true. I'm trying to make sense of that.
Well, I mean, some independent reporting said that was driven mostly by Jack Easterby and his relationship with Josh McCown. And, I like Josh McCown. He actually could be a good coach at some point, but just being a good football mind isn't really enough, especially when they're, and I will also concede it's hard, there are players that could be good coaches, and in the years that they would normally be getting coaching experience, they're still playing. And that's part of Josh McCown's deal. So, I'm not militantly against Josh McCown as a person. It's just, most people have to pay their dues, or at least show that they pay their dues, and just the optics of it was just atrocious. I mean, I think part of that comes from just not understanding how the team not understanding how they're perceived on the outside, and maybe not caring and recognizing that if you want to lead, that you have to do things that at least seem more plausible. Like you don't have, like, you can't listen to everybody, because frankly, fans, including myself, sometimes have dumb ideas. And if you listen to all the noise, you would go insane. But they had done so many unorthodox moves thinking that it was going to work, that might be a bridge too far. Now, I think that the full thing is, I want to go all the way back to 2002 and Bob McNair kind of trying to almost make the Texans kind of like, okay, we're starting a franchise from scratch. What would you and me like in a franchise? And part of that was that the owner does things that owners need to do. And the main part of that is write big checks and hire good football people, and then get out of their way. The other component of that is Bob McNair really made a focus on it not being about himself, but it being about trying to make the best fan experience for all fans. And
Right.
If you're looking at the Texans at their best, especially in the early years when they're hungry and they know that, not everybody wants to be a Texan fan or an NFL fan, like they have their college allegiances or they might like a different team. He knew he needed to earn every single fan, and they were very humble and very hungry those early years. And they had to invent a lot of stuff themselves, really, because the NFL wasn't very helpful in a lot of the ways that they started the franchise. Like, they weren't helpful with a lot of resources. When the Texans had their expansion draft, both their draft and the Browns draft wasn't as good as the Panthers and the Jaguars draft, expansion draft things, because those two teams got better really fast because they took advantage of the changes in the salary cap. And so they were able to get a lot of great players in a very quick time, and they found early success. And the rest of the league goes, man, that's not fair. So when the Browns came in and when the Texans came in, they didn't have those same types of advantages. So if you go back to those early days, and one of the things that Bob McNair really appreciated was patience with the franchise and trying to build things over time and having patience. Now, all of those things sound good theoretically, but in practice, sometimes that's hard. Sometimes you have too much patience in some things and not enough patience in others. And I think sometimes they've lost their way on some of those things. But I think that they want to get back to some of those things. But, like, for example, the coaching decisions that have been made so far with Nick Caserio, are those Nick Caserio choices? Collaboratively, I guess, but I don't think that those are his choices. I mean, he has to support them, and he's trying to make it work, and this is the circumstance he's in. And sometimes, it's like the Shakespeare thing, all's well that ends well. And, sometimes what you have is really what you need. But now, Jack is gone. Nick's been here long enough that he has kind of a better lay of the land. I think there should be a lot of confidence in what Nick does, because he has some skill sets and relationships that a lot of people don't have. There were reasons why Bob McNair wanted Nick Caserio to run his organization. And there's reasons why he has it now. And I think he's better at the things that he's more experienced at, like when he's doing GM stuff and talking about GM things. And he doesn't really need to over-explain sometimes, like just be the GM you have the job, you don't have to over-explain. Like when he does GM things and the head coach does head coach things and really runs the team, and the owner writes the checks, you know, like you see how the Astros are. Like that's what you want. You want people to be in their roles, doing their roles, and putting the players in their specific best situations to succeed. And that's what they're planning on doing. And it's just going to take some time before people have more trust in things, because there were untrustworthy things that happened and some untrustworthy rumors of things that happen. And, you know, that's really kind of hard to manage. You can't really manage all that, but sometimes leaks happen because things aren't right.
Okay.
Crenshaw, you got any questions before we move on to about the whole Jack Easterby or anything else before we move on?
No, we could move on. Pretty much everything got answered, or that can get answered right now.
And I would say go to, like, I might not articulate it the best here, but really
Yes.
go to my pinned tweet that I wrote for the Battle Red blog people, because I really tried to be as fair as I could and kind of
Before
more forward facing than backwards facing.
before the
Yeah,
podcast,
I have it up right now. I have it up right now.
Yeah.
Looking at it as well.
I was gonna say before the podcast, I checked it out. It was a if you like a good read, that's one of them. Before we move on, got a couple comments. Josh Allen, another Jags fan, says, "Can we please start a GoFundMe for a better frame for BTs?" And can ask her if we can confirm if Bill O'Brien's chin dimple is an implant. Oh God, Jag fans, man, they're on one today. You gotta give it to them.
I got it. Yeah.
Well, Miss Stephanie, there's been some rumors and some transactions. Gruger Hill was just let go, and trade talks of Brandon Cooks. Are we going to see a Cooks trade here in a couple of days, or what's your opinion on it?
Well, I mean, things might have been different if they played better in the fourth quarter, but I mean, and what's kind of strange about this situation is, you know, some people want to fully pull the plug, but, you know, if we're just talking about divisional races, they tied the Colts and they beat the Jags and they're fixing to play the Titans.
And it's a winnable game. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, but if you're an experienced player and if you're a winner, you want to win.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, frankly, they're not really in a great position for that for a number of different reasons. So, you know, everything at this time of year is assets. You know, Brandon Cook is a great player. He would probably contribute better on a team that had a more experienced quarterback. What is that value? Now, it's pretty clear that, you know, he's expressed confidence in Nick Caserio. He's had some interesting social media interactions where he's liking tweets about him moving on. But I don't think that, you know, as we saw from the former quarterback trade, Nick Caserio is not interested in yard sales. The dead money's pretty big for next year if they go this direction. And you don't have a lot of great you know, if you trade him, are you compromising the rest of your offense? You know, he hasn't had the best connection with Davis Mills this year, and he's had a number of drops. But at the same time, you know, he's a valuable player, and it may be difficult to just get those reps in. I don't think they want to do a yard sale, but if they get good value, I think they'd want to do it. My personal preference, and not just because I was born in Wisconsin, is I wish that he would go to the Packers.
root for the home team, but not for the home team. I get you.
Well, no, it's the NFC.
Right.
He knows Randall Cobb. They certainly need it because of just the shape of their wide receiver group.
Yeah.
But it's just a question of like, okay, and you're getting a player that is under contract. So, I mean, my thing, like, some people are very definitive, like this should happen or this shouldn't happen. And with all of these topics, there's pluses and minuses to anything that you do. I mean, I really like that kind of thinking. But at the same time, we also have to realize that these people are people.
Right.
They're not
right.
Madden. They have limited careers. They work really hard, and it's really hard. It's hard to be playing for a team that keeps losing. I mean, that's on you, even if you're strong.
Yeah. Well, Crenshaw, do you have a question for Miss Stephanie about the transactions?
What would be good value if they do make the trade to eat that dead cap?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what good, like, it's almost one of those, it when you see it, and the discussions out there is that they're interested in draft picks and not people. Sometimes there is some monetary considerations with how they handle salary and things like that. So, I mean, I think a lot of it is just kind of looking at it all together. And, the timing of this is kind of strange. Like, like in the off season, a player might have a little bit more value because you get to go through a training camp with them and you get to have them on their roster for a while versus, hey, here's a guy that, our team sucks and this guy's disgruntled having to play for a sorry team. So I don't know what they can get. I don't know what would make for feeling like good value where you're eating all of that salary, that dead cap.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
but the trend nowadays is that teams are feeling more comfortable eating dead cap.
Yeah. Well, especially this team. So it would have made more sense to trade him to Green Bay during the draft, correct?
There's different times where players get traded. I mean, there's certain times that don't make any sense at all. Like, when they traded JD Clowney, that was yard sale. Like, because he was ready to play for the team. Like he missed all that camp, but he was ready to play and prepared to play. And then they're like, okay, here's some random guys.
Yeah, it seems like the team history has been nothing but yard sales, except for when Caserio took place, which has been great. The Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna try. But like for example, they just let JJ Watt go.
Right.
Just let him go, and they could have tried to play a little bit more hardball with him, but I think it just acknowledged what he had meant to the franchise, and and that they probably wouldn't have gotten great value from him, but who knows? I mean, there's those things that make it hard to assess value because we're not just talking about trading beans. These are people who have their own opinions of things, and really you want players that want to play for your team, and some players have more leverage and value, and it sounds as though they're trying to make it work, but if teams aren't offering things, they're not offering things, and the gossip is that there's multiple teams looking, so all you need is one person to think that they're going to be on the outside that really want them to get good value, but we'll see.
I don't know if this was just discussed because, as you probably saw, my internet went off and on for a moment. So
is that symbolic again?
I'm sorry. This is why I need the GoFundMe. I gotta fix the internet, fix the poster. Excuse me. But anyway, so here's what's happening in the rumor mill. Let me know. This is a question not just for Stephanie, but for everyone. I'm curious to see if you guys believe it. I don't know if I do, but right now the rumor mill is Hill requested to leave because he was pretty good friends with Jack, and Brandon Cook wants to leave because he was pretty good friends with Jack, and they kind of are upset the way that he's been treated in the media, and now that he's gone. That
I don't want to read too much. I don't want to read too much into things. He clearly had good relationships with different players on the team. I mean, I think part of it is just, this is the time of year where people start being offered for trade, and you already have Christian Harris in the building. So
and Garrett Waller is playing lights out.
Yeah, so if you're not getting the playing time that you want, and your name's out there maybe for some trades, at some point, if you're not going to get real good trade value, you just release the guy and let the guy find another place. And that's actually a kind thing to do for somebody, is to allow them to find their own location. If you can't really get a trade anyway, because a lot of the NFL is just about opportunity. And if you're behind people and you're not getting the playing time that you want, that's problematic for players who have high opinions of themselves. I think whatever the relationship that, Brandon Cooks has a good relationship with Jack, but whatever that relationship is, it doesn't change the fact that he plays for a losing team. He has value. Other teams are in desperate need of wide receivers, and that would happen whether Jack had been on the team or not with the team. But whatever the case may be, there should never be a situation where one guy is so important for particular players, because that actually ended up being a bit of a problem, where there was this sense that and this may not be something that Jack intended, but there was the sense that you were either a Jack guy or not Jack guy. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be everybody's a Texan. You shouldn't have to worry about kind of
being divided.
Being divided, or the kind of the corporate politics of it. I don't think that there was as much of that this year as there was that sensation in 2021.
Right.
2021 had a lot of different voices saying a lot of different things, and a lot of paranoia because there had already been an obvious leak.
Right.
So it was not the most trusted environment for anybody. Whether you were inside the building or outside the building, or doing media activities, or for fans. There was just a lot of some of the things that people thought about the Texans were way out of line. And some of the things that people thought about the Texans were true. But there was no real mechanism to separate the truth from the fiction, because the things that were happening that were obvious and open were kind of odd. So when you have a situation like that, it really does get more difficult to kind of have that sense of normalcy.
Okay.
A couple more comments before we move on. I just followed you on Twitter. Shout out to women involved in NFL. You're so smart. I think Sam is
I
brown nose a little bit, but
no, I have lots of friends who are Jag fans, and I think part of that just kind of comes from our mutual hatred of the Colts for being kind of arrogant asses, and the Titans for the obvious reason that they're the Titans. And
then we got one more that says, I don't like the idea of trading Cooks. Our receiver core is thin as is. He's one of the most consistent receivers in the league, and we're completely convinced that he's falling off a cliff. IDK.
My view on Cooks is I watched him all camp. I am surprised by the drops that he's had this season because they're higher than I would expect. I do not think that he has fallen off the cliff. I mean, I think he has a lot of focus on the team for exactly the reasons why you don't want to trade him, which is they don't have they don't have that number one guy other than him, and he's not like the typical number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has been sneaky productive with a lot of different quarterbacks over a lot of period of time. I think that he would prefer to be in a situation where he had more help, frankly.
Right.
Like they have a lot of wide receivers, and I do like some of the wide receivers that they have, but I don't think that they are as consistent with just the basic wide receiver thing, which is you got to catch the ball, you got to run precise routes. I think they have a lot of athletes right now, and frankly, like when Andre Johnson started, he was more of an athlete than a wide receiver, and then he became a wide receiver.
Right.
Like he became a wide receiver, and you have to have those skills so that as you progress in your career, you can still get separation because you run routes better than most people can run routes. I do like, targets are not just wide receivers, and I do like the Caserio move of bringing Jordan Aiken back on the team. He's pretty much caught all the balls going his direction.
He had a huge game Sunday, so.
And at least when he was through here the first time, he struck me as a sharp guy that really tried to be a good teammate and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you say all those words, but I mean, I really liked him as a player, and I was sad that he was gone, and I'm glad that they brought him back.
Yeah.
I thought he was a decent player. Like, he's not Gronk or something like that, but I mean, you can only catch the balls that go your way, and I thought that he did a pretty good job of taking advantage of the opportunities he got.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's jump into some games if there's no other questions.
Yes.
Sound good? All right.
Yeah.
Well, we went to Las Vegas, and sadly, we did not get the outcome we had. 38-20. Stephanie, I'll start with you. What was your thoughts of the game? Who impressed you and did not?
Well, I got back into doing game previews before each game, and boy, howdy, last week's game preview was very spot on. I mean, the Raiders at this point are running better than most teams in the league, and it was pretty clear that they did not solve their run defense issue over the bye. And so if you can't get back on the field in the fourth quarter, you're going to be in trouble. Or if you're just allowing that many yards,
right,
you're going to be in trouble. It's pretty disturbing that, I mean, if we were playing Madden, you would just keep on running the outside. Okay, you can't stop it. We're just going to run to the outside till you stop. Okay, well, we're just going to do that play. I mentioned Akins before as something that was positive. Davis Mills had some positive moments in that game. It's not good to get into a game script where the Texans are behind. I don't care how experienced of a quarterback you are. That is not an easy situation where they know you're going to have to throw the ball to get back into the game. And Dameon Pierce, we would have liked to see more of him, but at some point you can't when you get behind like that. And that's just kind of, the Texans had not been allowing that many points, and the Raiders had been putting up a lot of points. So, it was not going to work to their benefit if this ended up being a game where you needed to score a lot of points, because the Texans have not been able to do that.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's pretty much the story of the game. I mean, I think the good parts is you can still see that they're playing hard. It's just, it's hard to compete. You know, you can put together a team of people that are playing pretty hard, but I mean, if you just don't have the players to compete, then you don't have the players to compete. And I don't think that they have, you know, if you have role players that might be good in roles, that gets exposed if you're having to play for 4 quarters.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll shoot to you, VT. What was your thoughts?
So I'll start with the positives. I agree with what Stephanie said about Akins. It was funny you said that. I was on a space.
I think your wife. I think your Wi-Fi went out again.
Oh, you kidding me?
You're back.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
back.
back now. Yeah.
Yay! Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm having all these problems today. It's actually been the first time we've had these problems. So it was funny that you mentioned Akins, because earlier today I actually was on a space today where I was actually talking about Brandon Cooks and receivers and all sorts of the stuff that we're talking about. We pretty much talk about it.
And he cut out again. He cut out again.
Guys.
Yeah, we're here. We're here now.
Okay. What I said was that Jordan Akins pretty much is essentially looks like the best receiver on the team right now. There were 3 times where he converted on 3rd downs, and he actually converted on a 4th and long. So we had real issues converting 3rd downs, and he was the star. He converted on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 4th and 9, I believe, 4th and 7 or 4th and 9. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. He was getting yak yards. That run that went to 39 yards, that shouldn't even been 39 yards.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'm
I'm gonna say another positive while he's out. Philip Dorsett.
Yes.
You know, over the summer, one of the things that kind of bothered me was just so many drops in training camp against error. And my own personal view, my personal view is you practice like you play, and if you're dropping against error when you're not playing a game, you're going to be worse in a game. And some of the wide receivers that the Texans have had over many years that had drops in practice, and people are like, why isn't that player on the field? You know, that's the issue. But Philip Dorsett is a professional wide receiver. I'm curious to see what his role is in the future. Like, I like how he runs routes. He practices in a way where, you know, you can see, you know, he's pretty good with his hands. I just like the way he catches the ball. We had that little bobble touchdown, but, you know, one overturn, you know. So
it was a great recovery for a touchdown. So
he was one of those players that I wanted to see more of. You know, maybe given some of the noise that we've heard, you know, maybe we see a little less Rex Burkhead touches. Like,
that'd be awesome.
I know that people are kind of wound up about that, and I think part of that is just trying to give Davis Mills some more kind of comfort and help as far as, you know, feeling comfortable with protections and things like that. But, you know, running back is one of those positions where you can be very successful at it, even as a rookie, as we're seeing with Dameon Pierce. And, you know, we would like to see some progress with maybe some other players and some other opportunities, because there's only like so many touches in a game.
Yeah. Well, Chrysaw, since VT really just left us, what's your take of the game?
Oh man, the game started off great. I like the way that Mills was getting the ball down the field, getting the ball out of his hand quick. Pep his scheming looked good. looked good and everything, and then we got to the fourth quarter and they turned back to the Texans again. I don't understand why we can't put together, four, good quarters. But I mean, maybe we'll figure that out later on down in the future. But I feel like Pierce, he got his touches, 24 touches. I think that's about good for him. Rex, I'm tired of seeing him there. I'm hopeful. I think that's how you say his name. There. That's how you say his name. There.
I'm the last person to ask. I think it's Dar.
Yeah. Well, we'll call him Dio. We'll call him Dio then. I hope this the chance that Dio could get his reps. I don't understand why he's not getting touches in the first place. Rex, this is who he is. We know who he is. This has been his career. So I don't know what's going on there. On the defense, I feel like they just got worn out, fatigue. I mean, we're not gonna have a pass rush regardless. These guys, I don't know why they didn't get some good pass rushers, some good defensive tackles over the free agency. Maybe they need to do some.
And one of the things I want to mention with that is, and part of this goes into the next week's game. The Titans talk about being a physical team. They want to out physical you. And if you look at the way that their team's put together, it looks like a physical team. Just if you just looked at the roster and saw like how big people are and all that. If you look at the Texans, they talk a big game about being a physical team, and I think they're a pretty fast team. Mm-hmm. But all up and down that line is not a very big line relative to the league. So I don't know how you out physical the other side. Like you can rotate a bunch of guys in and keep them fresh, but I don't know that you can out physical the other guys when it really isn't a very physically big defensive line. So like, you're saying that this is what you want to be, but I don't think it's comprised that way. If you just go through the roster and look at how big the defensive linemen are. They're not very big.
Right.
Yeah, I think they didn't do some more, maybe more run blitzing or something. They didn't do something to stop these guys from running 150, 160 yards.
I think it is like on the outside. Like, there's the thought that, in Lovey's defense, everybody has to play their role. And if any one person's not in their gap or setting the edge right, then everything falls apart. And, you can't have the linebackers needing to have that many tackles or the safeties having, there's all that discussion about well, we're just not tackling very well. Well, you can't let the guys have a head of steam going past the defensive line or being able to go to the edge like that. It's hard. It's hard to get yards on the edge in the NFL because people are so fast. Now, I will give the Raiders credit. They are a really good running team. They are if you looked at the matchup ahead of time, they are a really good running team, and the Texans have not been a very good team that way. But part of that is the game script, which is if the other team has a lead in the fourth quarter, they're just going to keep running the ball down your throat until you stop it, and they can't stop it. So they're going to get run on more. The easier it is to run, they're going to run more. That's just
right.
That's just Madden.
Right. Crystal, anything else?
No, I mean that's basically about it. I just, like I say, wish they could put together 4 quarters. I feel like now, since the season is lost, no more scripted plays. Just let Mills sling it. He get intercepted. Just sling it. Get the guys.
No, okay.
Squad.
Okay, I'm gonna take that back.
What's up?
I really do think that you need to develop Mills to whatever he can be. You either are going to have somebody that you think you can build with, or you're going to know that you need to go a different direction.
What is your take on Mills, though? Do you think he can be the guy?
I don't know. I mean, as I said earlier, I see everybody on the team as pluses and minuses. Mm-hmm. And there are and I said this before the season too, there are pluses to Mills that you want to see in an NFL quarterback. If he can get his footwork right, he can be accurate. Sometimes, he had some games where he was going high on the ball. But if you're talking about, is he like that transcendent guy that instantly looks great? coming out of school? No, but part of that is sometimes those players that are just slinging it get into some bad habits that after a while the tape shows you can't do that, you know? And that's not going to be Mills's game. Mills is never going to be the, hey, I'm the off script guy that saves your bacon. Like, that's not who he is. But that's not necessarily bad. Like, if he has some things in place, there are moments where you go, hey, he looks calm and he's doing the things that he should do and he's looking beyond where he is years wise. But he's not going to be the sling it guy. I do think that they could do things in place to make things easier for him. And I don't like when they go heavy and then go, okay, you know, we're keeping all these blockers and you only have a few targets. I don't much care to see too much more of that. But they're trying to develop him like an NFL quarterback and see if it sticks. I don't have a lot of optimism for him, but you know, you really shouldn't, given where he was drafted and all of that. But I mean, he really hasn't had that many games under his belt because he came into the league kind of in the weird COVID time.
Right.
So like, I know that like some of the dialogue is like, you know, he's garbage or he's the future. And my view is he is learning something every game and we'll know more by the end of the season. I don't think that we're on that kind of let's wait 5 years David Carr train because that doesn't exist. It shouldn't have existed then either. But it's interesting. I mean, he has some interesting parts of his game. He does have the kind of disposition that you would like in an NFL quarterback where he's not getting too high or too low. He has decent coaching. So we'll see what he is, but I mean, am I like super optimistic like I'm on the Mills train, this is going to work? No, but you know, this is what we're going to see.
Right.
And you know, it'd be nice to think that, you know, you're going to have that transcendent quarterback that just kind of comes out of nowhere. But, you know, generational quarterbacks are hard to find. I mean, look at the whole league. The whole league is having an NFL quarterback issue right now.
Yeah.
Because some of the quarterbacks got old. Some of the quarterbacks are young. And some of the quarterbacks didn't necessarily have the best coaching around them or the best scheme around them. But coaching matters. That's what this year's talking about. Like, you can see so many situations where, you know, how the quarterback play is a coaching matters thing, either positive or negative.
Yeah, most that. BT's, now that you're with us, hopefully for good. You want to finish?
Yeah, I'm on my phone now since my internet keeps going in and out. So I apologize, guys.
No worries.
I didn't get a chance to talk about what I want to say, so I'll quickly do it because I know we're over our time, but I'll just try to speed through it as much as I can. So just leaving off what I was saying, what I said last was that I really did think that Jordan Akins did a great job. He was converting third downs. He also converted, like I said, a fourth and long. What I was really happy with, I was happy with Mills. Mills actually was accurate. You know, first game that he's thrown over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he had that pick 6, but I'll talk about that in a second. Collins really has shown up. Nico Collins, unfortunately, got hurt with the groin injury, but the Chargers game and the Raiders game, he's looked quite good. So I will say I'm happy with that. Kenny Green is definitely good at the run blocking. He still has some issues with pass protection. And when he gets frustrated, he commits penalties. That's got to be resolved because he's done that now in the fourth quarter multiple times. And stalling out drives because of penalties is something the team cannot afford. Not just now, but in the future. So that's got to be resolved. We do need to resolve our center position and our right guard. So there's obviously lots of different things to resolve. And obviously the biggest one, which I think all of us can agree with, I think every single person in the nation who watches Texans games can agree with, that our run defense is absolutely atrocious. And that we definitely need to put that as a first round pick there to get, you know, whether it's Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Miles Murphy. I mean, we've got to fix up our run defense. That has to be a priority. But as we were talking about Brandon Cooks, I also think you throw in high in that consideration. You throw up in JSN, and then one of the reasons why I guess I'm going to consider myself a pro trade for Brandon Cooks is because I do think he's aging out. He's getting to the point where he's only got maybe a couple of years left in him where he can play at the level where we would want him to play, and we're seeing a tremendous amount of degradation compared to last year. Now, how much of that is mental? How much of that is due to age? How much of that is just being upset that he's on a losing team? I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that the drop off to me seems significant. I know, Stephanie, you don't think it's as significant, but I definitely think it's an issue. I love Brandon Cooks for he hasn't been here that long, but for years.
I think he still has value. Just age is undefeated with that, and so obviously there's the age thing.
Unless you're Justin Verlander, but yeah, you're correct.
And the other thing is, especially if you don't have a lot of size as a wide receiver, I'm not sure that it works to your benefit. But I mean, this year has been a strange year for wide receivers, and they've been really, really focusing on their running game for good reasons. And he hasn't taken advantage of all of his targets just because of the drops. But drops to me isn't a falling off thing. Drops to me is maybe just a connection thing with Mills. Like, I don't think it's a big drop off, but yeah, he's not a rookie. He's not in a rookie contract. He has a value, but it's like what we were talking about with DeAndre Hopkins. Wide receivers who have experience eventually will fall off, and so you try to get value while there's still value to be had. So I mean, I'm not pro or anti. I'm just like, hey,
if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, no, give me a deal that makes some sense, and I'll talk. If the deal doesn't make sense, I'm not really interested in a yard sale, but it may end up being, depending on what the situation is, that a yard sale happens because the player just doesn't want to be here.
What do you think would be an equitable trade for him?
We went through that.
When I was off, huh?
There's a lot of
you was
things
MIA.
involved. There's a lot of things involved with it. It's just the different factors of, draft picks, if there's player considerations, if there's money involved, some kind of combination of that.
Right.
If it was a straight up draft pick, no players, no monetary compensation outside of, just picking up the leftover contract, nothing extra.
I don't know. I need to see it.
I can give you my number. My number is, if we can get a third for him, at least, you take it. And I think that with a third, Nick Caserio can do a lot with that third. We saw what he did with the fourth. And I think
he almost like doesn't want draft picks. Like there's like, a handful of guys that he really likes, and then he just would rather not use the rest of the draft picks. Just not have rookies. I mean, it's pretty clear that he doesn't care about rookies. I mean, he probably shouldn't even be talking about rookies, because sometimes the way he talks about them, if I was the rookie, I would not like it.
Right. Kind of like a Bill O'Brien-esque, huh?
Well, I get it, that kind of hard-o view, but I'm more of a Lance McCullers person on that, which is if you're wearing and actually Lovey has said similar things, which is if you're wearing the uniform, you're expected to perform, and we don't care how long you've been with the team, you're expected to perform, and we're not going to make you earn stuff, or obviously you have to recognize what you don't know, but I'm not big into kind of like neg talking the rookies, because it's hard enough learning in front of the world. Like, really, that's what all of us are doing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Caserio's learning in front of the world to be a forward-facing GM. Lovie Smith, he's been doing it for a while, but he hasn't been doing it with the Texans, so he's learning us. But all these players are learning in front of the world, and that's a hard thing to do. I mean, that's a hard thing to do in and of itself without thinking, oh, am I saying the wrong thing, or what is the GM thinking about me? And like, nobody needs any of that in their lives.
Yeah.
You're right. I agree with that.
Well, quickly before we go on to the Titans game, I'll kind of give my thoughts of the game. I kind of disagree with Crenshaw. I thought we showed up on the fourth quarter. On the offense wise, we showed up on the fourth quarter. The defense is just, we couldn't do it. We playing from behind. The defense failed us. It wasn't Mills. It wasn't the offense this time. It was the defense. The run game ran all over us. And then when we focused on the run game, Devontae Adams and Derek Carr happened. So I thought this was the best game that we played a full game of.
100%.
A defense kind of just dropped the ball. And like y'all said, Mills played a heck of a game. But like me and Chris all talked about this before, I need to see consistency. I need to see
Well,
more.
I mean, his biggest thing is when his feet are right, it's good. When he can't get his feet set because the pass rush is on him, there's very few players that are really good without a good base. And you can, like, if you watch his feet, that's what Mills is.
Oh, yeah.
When his feet are good, he plays good. When his feet are not right, then like most quarterbacks that don't have a good base, it's hard to make plays.
Yeah, Crenshaw's been preaching all year about Mills' feet work. So
his feet is terrible.
We agree
Always.
with you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, during the Raiders game, I actually thought his footwork was well improved. He picked up on the blitz. He walked up inside a collapsing pocket, delivered passes. That pass that he had to Dorsett was an elite level pass, if you ask me.
Well, then that one to Moore for the touchdown was a good read the blitz pass too.
Yeah,
so that was another positive is he's reading the blitz a lot better than he is from week one.
He's getting rid of the ball really, really fast because he's had to get rid of the ball really, really fast.
Right.
I mean, there was a number of times where he was lucky he didn't just completely eat it because the pass rush was in so quickly. And, it's hard to tell from the outside what the reasons for that are. Like, was it something that he didn't call or whatever? But, when he was trying to come back, there were some times where he just could not get his feet under him because he just didn't have the space to do it.
Yeah. Well, moving on real quickly because we don't want to keep you all night, Miss Stephanie. Let's move on to the Titans game real quick. What's your predictions of that game? If you had to shoot out a score, what do you think? See,
I have to say this is my own personal bias. I think if they played the game 1,000 times, there would be 1,000 different results. So I am really not a good game prediction person. I mean, I understand why they're favored. This particular game is pretty difficult to predict because we don't know if Tannehill is going to be right for this game because he had an ankle injury in the last game. So who knows what this game is going to be? And
do you at least predict the Texans to win or lose?
I can't predict the Texans to win this game, even if it's at home. I mean, there's reasons why the Texans haven't been favored for any of the games, but I mean, they beat the Jags on the road. And, none of the AFC South is a juggernaut, and division games are always weird. Like one of my primary rules of like when you're doing suicide pools is never pick a division game because the teams know each other really, really well. And
always an upset.
And weird stuff happens all the time. So, I mean, I'm predicting the Titans to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Texans won.
Okay. BT, real quick, who you got?
So I got the Titans. I think the score is going to be really similar to the Raiders, frankly, high 30s for the Titans, low 20s for us. I think the major issue isn't going to be Tannehill. The major issue, like Jacobs, is going to be Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry runs on us over 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns on average every single time he's healthy and goes against us. So I'm expecting him to have 200 yards and at least one touchdown, if not 2 or 3 against us. Derrick Henry is the threat here. Tannehill is not the threat. That is the biggest obvious problem. We saw it with Josh Jacobs, and we're going to see with Derrick Henry. What I will say is if Tannehill isn't playing and it's going to be Malik Willis, there is a chance that we could get 2 or 3 interceptions and have a shot.
Unless he ends up just running right over us too.
Yeah.
I have to say, in the history of the Texans, I never liked when they were facing a quarterback who could run.
Yeah.
Especially when their run defense was bad.
Yeah. Right.
Like
right.
It could actually be worse if
Malik Willis.
Right.
True. I just figure even though he'll run, I just figure that Malik Willis will probably have 2 interceptions though. Even though he'll probably have a good 50 yards on us as well. But if not more. But there's the chance with him, because that's what he did at Liberty, is just interceptions all day long. But I'm not this game. I'm not expecting a ton, frankly. I actually, for the Raiders, even though I predicted us to lose, I was actually not just hoping, like obviously hope we win every game, but the Raiders game was also my birthday, so I was like, can the Texans just give me this birthday gift? They did not, but I will say that they did a great job for the first half.
The Astros gave you birthday gifts for days, though.
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so much more of a football fan. Football is everything. But getting back to the Titans, it's all about Derrick Henry. And
wait, take all the gifts that you can get. That's what I got to tell you.
Right. Especially when it comes to the Texans. Crenshaw, what about you? What you got?
Yeah, real quick. Titans 31, Texans 17. Derrick Henry, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's all I got.
All right. Well, I guess I'm the oddball out. I got the Texans winning this game. I'm going to say 20-17. Derrick Henry's going to have a big game, but there's a difference. Ryan Tannehill, he's not a good quarterback. I think if we can stack the box, force Tannehill ball, it's not going to be pretty. And I'd say we get the lead. Plus, we always take one from the Tennessee. So I'm going to say this is going to be the game that we take it from. So 2017, mark it down.
I like the way you think.
I'm hoping, I've been wrong all season, but a broken clock is right twice a day. So
hey, the Raiders game was the one that I was closest to. I was right on Josh Jacobs. I was pretty close to the score. It was the only one that I was like pretty damn close. So the Titans, I'm just honestly imagining a score very similar to that. 31-38 around there for the Titans and 21-24 for us. And with Henry, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Jeez, please. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all watching us. Miss Stephanie, tell everybody where they can find your amazing work at and where they can find you on social media.
Sure. I have like all my links in my Twitter handle, Steph Stradley. If you and it has like the links to my Chronicle stuff, and then it has links to my personal blog stuff. If you Google any version of my name, it takes you to my personal blog where I put my non-Texan stuff or things that just don't fit at the Chronicle very well. And then you can find me on Twitter and Facebook, just, adding to the conversation where I can.
Well, we greatly appreciate you coming on. BT, where can we find your stuff at, sir?
You can go to Brown Chubby Bear when I have internet. You can go on Twitter. I'm either pissing people off by tweeting at them, or pissing people off when I'm in a space, telling them that they're wrong and I'm right. So
Wait. It doesn't have to be that way. You know,
it's a joke. I'm really not that way.
we don't have to debate each other. We just have points of view.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Most of the time, even though I disagree with a lot of my friends on Twitter, we're all friends at the end of the day. But
That's how it should be.
it is fun to be like, I was right, every once in a while. But you can also find me on Reddit. I'm Chubby Brown Bear there. So you can find me on Reddit. But I will also ask everyone to go to TexansFanBattle.com, the actual site. So what I've been doing lately is I've been doing in-depth recaps of every game. So I've been liking that format that I've been doing after every game. Some people have messaged me and say they like it because I do go over particular plays and plays that in detail. So some of the things that you may not catch right away when you're watching it, I will watch the all 22 before I write it. So I have a little bit of knowledge there, and some people like that. So I say check that out. I'll do that again. After the Titans game as well. So definitely check out the articles. I have some good articles, some about Jack Easterby's, some about Davis Mills. Check it out. TexansFanBattle.com.
Yeah, if you like a good read, always check out BT stuff on TexansFanBattle.com. Crenshaw, tell us where we can find your amazing stuff at.
You can find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw and every social media platform, same name.
And you can find me. I'm probably going to start changing my name to Sadden Texans fan again. But right now, you can find me at A1 Day One Texans. Also, guys, make sure you follow our Instagram. Been having some cool games and stuff on there, like guest a player. Last week was Dominic Davis. Only one person got it right. Everybody thought it was Derek Stingley. So, so make sure you check it out. Some great stuff coming on. And
Dominic Davis Williams.
Yes, I forgot to
add that hyphen. Yeah.
Yes, such a great player. Me's forgotten about him. But Miss Stephanie, again, thank you for coming on. We're definitely gonna have to do this again. We greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys asking. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully we come home with a win. If not, oh well, we'll get number one draft pick. Until then, guys, we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Go Texans.
Go Astros. Go Astros.